I'm about to dox myself. Are you ready for it? I work as a clinical research coordinator. Clinical meaning human. I don't want to gain credibility that I don't deserve. So to make it clear, I don't do research. I facilitate between people who have a disease that is being researched and the researchers. Part of my job is to be on the side of potential volunteers and protect their rights as much as I can, while also getting whichever research product to the researchers as efficiently as possible. Once in a while, ethical concerns will come up, and the primary investigator and I have to make a decision on whether something is ethical or how we can change workflow so we don't violate the rights of patients and other volunteers. If something is unclear to us, we have a higher ethical authority to which we not only have to answer to, but also can consult with, and that's the Ethics Committee, also known as the Institutional Review Board. The Ethics Committee has two distinct approaches to ethics, depending on who the study subject is. In the case of animal subjects, it's clear to me that the approach is welfarist. When they approve animal trials, they do it knowing that animals are going to be killed and probably made to suffer. Their worry is then turned into minimizing suffering, so the committee recognizes that they can suffer, but that knowledge translates into measures to reduce that suffering and not prevent it. The word exploitation might be used, but as an amoral statement of fact, not a moral consideration. I think they apply the definition of exploitation that is usually used for objects onto animals. And every animal will be killed. That's what the preclinical trials are for. Medical intervention and subsequent autopsy on beings that are deemed similar to humans but don't have the same rights in their eyes. Giving these animals any rights would be laughable in a situation that will for sure violate them. Researchers need to prove the utility of using these animals, and the utility is advancement of human knowledge and medical ability. So animals are the accepted means to that end according to the committee and the researchers. I want to be fair and say that where I am, there is an effort to minimize animal use in research. The researchers who do preclinical trials tell me that they need to justify every mouse for the purpose of their hypothesis. Frankly, I don't believe them that it's that hard to get approval for animal research as they cry that it is, but I can't know for sure because my job is in clinical research. As you can imagine, I also stay away from these monsters as much as I can. My suspicion is that they can no longer do whatever they want to however many animals, so they cry about that. I also want to mention that it's not the case in every country that preclinical trials go through the ethics committee. I don't know what the standards or limitations are in those countries, so I can't speak about it. On the other hand, when it comes to human subjects, rights are the epicenter of ethical consideration. Everybody signs a consent form, which acts like a contract and includes rights and duties of the volunteers. Most importantly, it will include a possibility to withdraw from the study at any stage. Whenever there is an intervention, some volunteers are compensated with an amount that was very well thought out to make sure that the volunteer is well compensated, but not motivated by money so much that it's harder for them to say no to participation. With other individuals, it would be unethical to give compensation because for whatever reason they have increased pressure to volunteer for financial reasons. The ethical considerations are endless, and never will the committee approve a study that has a strong probability of impairing or killing people. Obviously. It's obvious today. Clinical research has a bloody, racist, ableist, and altogether inhumane history that prompted the creation of these governing bodies in the first place. They aren't perfect, but they are there to have the people's best interest in mind. In some cases, the ethics committee will approve that obtaining informed consent is not needed. Some very specific cases, when there are no conflicts of interest between the research conducted and the human subject from whom some medical trash is produced, and consent cannot be obtained, or for another specific reason, it is deemed to have no ethical problem to collect that medical trash and do research on it. I repeat, very specific cases. The list of cases is also getting smaller and smaller with technological advancements. For instance, having somebody's DNA in storage might become a risk for someone's identity in the future, so every study with DNA in the subject must obtain consent at this point. But please notice this: the research committees are basically governing an abolition of bad clinical practices. When it became clear that the research field violates the rights of people, the result of it wasn't prohibiting clinical research altogether. The abolition wasn't of the clinical research, but of rights violations. Every abolitionist movement should consider this context and decide what they are proposing to abolish. I gave this example in my previous video, but it's worth reiterating. The abolition of slavery in America resulted in eventually giving former slaves full human rights. What it did not result in are prohibitions of giving former slaves jobs and salaries or asking them for a favor to move a table. What it did abolish is the violation of rights. And I want to make something incredibly clear again, since this is what is required of us here on the internet. Although we shouldn't simply abolish every interaction with every oppressed group, every interaction with anybody, frankly, should have the context of it very carefully inspected to make sure that no rights are violated and that no exploitation occurs. This requires careful consideration of someone's best interest and whether or not their interest is in danger. For that, specificity of details and examination of context are paramount. To provide an example from real life, I should tell you a bit more about my job. I facilitate the research on human blood and tissue. That's it. That's all I'm saying about it. Can you tell from what I said whether or not human rights were violated? Can you tell if these humans survive an interaction with me? Can you tell if I victimize people for a living? I think you can't. I left too much to speculate on. I wasn't specific. I didn't give context. And I'm not going to, just for fun. You can try to get the context from me through questions in the comments. If you care about obtaining the context and getting the truth, I'm sure this is going to go very well for me. See you next time.